life. So maybe he's living in fear of that king. Or maybe it's just bitterness in his heart. You know, Mephibosheth, you're the rightful heir. You're the surviving member. Saul was the king. David doesn't deserve to be on the throne. You're the one that ought to be the king. And in his heart, he's got a root of bitterness throughout his whole life. So whatever it happens to be, the picture there of those three things describes us in many ways before we come to the Lord. Either we're fearful of God, we have wrong impression about Him, or maybe it's we've been raised with the idea that we're no good, that we're not good enough for God, we're not good enough for a relationship with Him. We're damaged goods, maybe through some bad choices that we've made. We don't measure up in God's eyes. Maybe we were indoctrinated that way. Or maybe bitterness is in our heart. Bitterness before God. Maybe something tragic happened in our life. We blame God for it. There's bitterness there. We're separated from God. And you know what? We're glad we're separated from God. There are people that have that attitude. Many of us in here, maybe we had one of these before we came to the Lord. So Mephibosheth, he's far away. Estranged, fearful, distant, no connection. And he's living in this place. Low to bar, empty, and barren. And that describes us and any who haven't come to the Lord. You may not know it, or you may not accept it, but you're living in a low to bar of your own right now. And it can look good on the outside, but if you really dig deep and look in your heart, you know before you come to the Lord, it's empty. It's barren. Think of the movie The Matrix, you know? All the human beings are being used for a power source. You saw that. In their minds, life is great. Everything, world's just going on as normal. But reality is, the world as they knew it doesn't exist. There is no light. There is no vegetation. Their life as they think that it is really doesn't exist at all. And that really is, before you come to the Lord, that's what life is. It's empty. As we read earlier in Ephesians. Separate from God. Look over at Luke in the New Testament, chapter 15. This is one of those parables, a picture. Then all the tax collectors and sinners drew near to him to hear him. Again, these are sinners, right? Lost people. And the Pharisees and scribes murmured, saying, "This man receives sinners and eats with them." So he spoke this parable to them, saying, "What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he loses one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one which is lost until he finds it? And when he found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying to them, 'Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which was lost.' I say to you that likewise there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 just persons who need no repentance." So what happens in the story? There's one lost out there. And the shepherd leaves those in the sheepfold. He goes out searching for the lost sheep. Here's what David does as well. Verse 5 back in where we were in 2 Samuel. David sends his soldiers, his troops out to Mephibosheth. He goes out to retrieve him, to bring him back. That's what God is doing with us as well. That's the third point about grace. God's grace pursues us relentlessly in some cases. The story that Jesus told here in this parable, the shepherd's concern for the lost sheep, that's us, sinners. Now notice when he finds a sheep, he doesn't kick the sheep. "Why did you run off? Why did you go away? Why would you do that?" Or he doesn't mistreat him as he brings him back in. No, he gently picks him up and he physically carries him back with joy back to the sheepfold. And that's what the Lord is looking to do today. He is constantly out looking for lost sheep because He desires to bring you back in to the sheepfold. He wants to restore a relationship, a right relationship with you. And Jesus is still looking today for lost sheep. He wants to bring you in. just like the parable Jesus told there. Back over in 2 Samuel now, in chapter 9. Chapter 9 and verse 5 there, as I mentioned, then King David sent and brought him out of the house of Machir, the son of Ammiel, from Lodabar. So David sends out and he brings him back. Now I want you to think about Mephibosheth again. Put yourself in his shoes. You've grown up with these preconceived notions. Now you're being sought after. David's guys show up on your doorstep. The king wants to see you. What's going through his mind thinking about that? Now this relates to, as God is pursuing us as lost sinners. He's coming. He wants to draw us back to himself. Lots of things go through our mind. And the enemy particularly wants to throw all these doubts and fears and excuses into your mind to keep you from coming back. So think about Mephibosheth this time. Everything that's going through his mind. Fear, probably. Anxiety. Maybe the overwhelming feeling of being cornered. Probably thinks it's judgment time. And I think many of us can relate to that as well. We have a lot of strange ideas about God before we come to him. A lot of interesting attitudes about what God, how God is, his character, how he's going to treat us, what he's looking for in us. Let's continue on here, reading verse 6 and 7. Now when Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, had come to David, he fell on his face and prostrated himself. And then David said, Mephibosheth. And he answered, Here is your servant. So David said to him, Do not fear, for I will surely show you kindness for Jonathan, your father's sake, and will restore to you all the land of Saul, your grandfather, and you shall eat at my table continually. So here now we have the offer of grace. David sought Mephibosheth out. Draws him in. Verse 6, Mephibosheth falls before the king expecting condemnation. Maybe even a death sentence. Certainly a guilty judgment. But that's not the case at all. Now the picture here, the type, Jonathan in this picture, and the promise that was made between Jonathan and David, that's a picture of Jesus. And what Jesus paid the penalty for us on the cross. And because of what he did for us, there's now a covenant that's been made. God's made a promise with us that if we put our trust in that, that we can have a right relationship restored with the Father. It's nothing we do. It's all what Jesus did. And here in this case, it's nothing what Mephibosheth has done. It's all because of that promise that was made between Jonathan and David. So point number 4 about grace. Grace does not judge. Not judging you. A couple of weeks ago, I think, Todd told the story in John chapter 8 about Jesus with the woman caught in adultery. Or maybe it was our morning Bible study. But I heard it a couple of weeks ago and it registered with me. Jesus was praying. He comes into the temple in the morning. The scribes and the Pharisees, they drag this woman before him, throw her down on the ground before Jesus. She was caught in adultery. Moses' law says what? Stone her. Kill her. What do you say, Jesus? Trying to catch him. See, because Jesus has been teaching about grace. Now they're saying, we're going to get him caught here because he can't go against Moses' law. So Jesus ignores him. He bends down. He starts scrolling in the sand, writing in the floor. They continue on. What do you say? There's a law that says she has to be stoned. And my mind goes, well, where's the guy who was caught in adultery? Because it's both of them. They left him out, right? It's just the woman. And they continue to harass Jesus. So he stands up. He says, any of you, or he without sin among you, here's a stone. You throw the first stone. Now maybe they can see what he's been writing down. He bends down. He continues writing on the ground. One by one, the accusers leave. From the eldest, the most senior, to the junior. They turn around and they leave. They depart. Now, when I get to heaven, that's going to be one of the first things I ask. What did you write on the ground? I got to know. Now, we think that he was probably writing what? The secret sins